All right, everybody, welcome to the Getting Outdoors podcast, episode number 155. And unless you've been under a rock and love the crappie fish, unless you don't love the crappie fish and have been under a rock, you have seen Shane Jones fishing on Facebook and his new YouTube channel. And I'm going to tell you, he has created quite a stir. And I got him here in the studio with me today. And I'm mighty proud he drove all the way from McCullough, Alabama to do this interview. Shane, thank you so much, man.
That's right, man. I can talk about fishing. I'm coming.
So. Well, let's talk about it. Now. You've been crappie fishing a long time, but you just started getting on social media and getting your following. Give us a brief bio of Shane. Shane, give us a brief bio of Shane Jones and how you got to start fishing. And I reckon you started up on the Warrior River,
yes,
right?
sir. Yes, sir. I did. My granddad and they had a place below Houghton's there, Lord, when I was probably 10 years old. And I had my first boat, and the rule was between my granddad and my grandma, I couldn't go far. So I always bass fished like every kid growing up and stuff, and caught bass and, plenty of fish there in that slough, and didn't know what I was doing. I was just fishing. I knew I enjoyed it. So
Every person I ever talked to that turned into a great crappie fisherman started out bass fishing.
that's exactly right. Well, you put a firetail worm on there and you go chunking and you catch them. I mean, everybody thinks about bass fishing so much now. They're studying all this and that, and you can still take a firetail worm and go catch.
That's right. That's
So,
right. We had a shyster and a squirrel tail bips and a firetail worm.
Yes, sir, that's right.
And that's all we had back in them days. We caught up many a fish.
Yeah, and it come full circle when I got a little older. I started working at U.S. Steel. I spent a lot of time there, and there was a man named Tony Humphreys. He caught crappie like you wouldn't believe. And during high school, during AEA, that's where we went. We didn't go to the beach. We spent our spring breaks up Logan Martin and stuff like that.
All right. Now, you said you worked in the steel mill.
Yes, sir.
All right. I can remember when I had Big Daddy's Bait Shop in 1979 when they had AEA holidays.
Yes, sir.
All them coal miners of Walker County would come down here crappie fishing. That's what
right.
they did.
That's exactly right. My senior trip, we graduated and went straight to Weiss Lake. I mean, that's a god. I've been in love with it for a long time. So,
all right. Now, when did you transition from bass fishing to crappie fishing?
The boat I have now, I bought in January of 2013, and I started crappie fishing a little bit and picking more up and coming down to Mopolis. Me and my brother had a hunting place down in Utah, so I drive down to Mopolis and got to catching fish as it got hotter. And in May and June when everybody else kind of stops. And I stopped at about June, about the 1st of June when it got in the 80s and the 70s at night. I slowed down fishing because I didn't think they were biting anymore, to be honest with you.
Nobody did. Nobody did.
No, sir. A lot of people don't realize it.
And you went to Demopolis to the boat races. You was telling me, tell that story.
Yes, sir. It's been about 3 years ago. Me and Shane Welch went to the boat races. He's friends with the guy that tunes the props for those things. And he's always had a bullet boat growing up and everything. And I bought some 13-foot rods. I didn't know what to do with them things. Them things are long and awkward. And we watched the boat race for a little while. And it got about 1 o'clock. It was steaming hot. And I said, man, we need to cool off. So we ran the boat and ran up in one of them creeks, and I'd just gotten that live scope probably a few months prior, and I dropped it in there and went to a little old creek. It went 8 foot deep, and I shined that thing in a tree, and it lit up like a Christmas tree. I asked Shane, I said, Shane Welch, I said, hey, buddy, is that not crappie? He goes, man, it looks like it. So next thing you know, I drop a jig down in there, and boom, I catch a 13, 14-inch white crappie. And then I drop in there again. We proceed to catch 15, 20 fish in that top, and I was blown. I was like, man, that's just a fluke. Maybe some shad got them in there or something. We went on around the bank, and there was a big water oak tree that had fallen, and it was real bushy. You know how water oaks are. And he made this little old pitch, and I seen a flash, and I was like, man, what was that? Was that a bass or he scared something? He said, man, I think that was a big crappie. I said, oh, no. And then he dropped in there and proceeded to pull a almost 2-pound crappie out. And we ended up catching 45 fish, and it was July the 15th, or I can't remember the date, but I was like, they're not here by accident. They're in here doing something. So that's when I started fishing pretty much, all summer long.
Well, now that wasn't that long ago. That's when you
No,
had a
sir.
live scope. So
Yes,
let's
sir.
go back to when I guess you started crappie fishing on the Warrior River
Yes, sir.
before you got the live scope.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about how you got so interested in how you learned to catch them in the summertime and the wintertime.
Well, in the wintertime, we always fish big blowdowns and stuff like everybody else,
I mean, but when did you realize if the crappie bit as good in the wintertime as they did in the spring of the year?
Well, because when they bunched up, I started catching them.
Mm.
Now they're a little more unpredictable in the winter. You got to chase them. You got to find them. It's if it was easy, everybody be posting a bunch of pictures. But I chase them a lot, and you crappie fishermen talk, and somebody say, "Hey, I caught them on the main river," and then you go the next day they move. They're just moving in the fall, but you can catch a ton of fish in November. But you have to deal with the flood and the rains and the weather. It's just not as stable as it is in the springtime.
What is your favorite time to fish, Shane?
Summer.
Okay.
I'll take June through August any day of the week. I know it's hot, but I'm telling you, it will blow your mind. Now I told Big Daddy my tough days are over. I have a Millennium umbrella. I got a fan. I'm through being tough. I got to the age I'm not trying to. I put some sunscreen on and go out there, and we catch a limit. 85, 90% of the time when we go out in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
The water's stable, the fish are stable, the shad are there, the conditions stay normal, and consistency to white crappie. That's what they want. The black crappie, they don't like the heat as much. You can still catch them at night. People go out at night, but during daylight, you go to Grenada, Mississippi, it can't get hot enough. It doesn't matter if it's 100 degrees. They're gonna bite.
Mm-hmm.
Same way in these fertile waters of this Alabama River, the Warrior River, all these lower parts, they don't mind the heat at all.
Well, let's go back now. Before you learned everything you learned about crappie, how you learned it. That's what everybody wants to know. Everybody's like me. I'm 70 years old. I still ain't figured them crappie out. I've been trying to figure them out since 1987.
Yeah, me too.
How did you figure them out? Now, how did you figure them out and get to where you can consistently go catch them? That's what I want. That's what everybody wants to know.
I'll tell you how I done it. Put a lot of time on the water.
Yeah, time on the water.
Time on the water. You don't realize. An old man told me a long time ago, you can't beat somebody that knows where not to fish. And when I spend a lot of time on the water, I know where not to fish. And Facebook and social media, when I post on Facebook, it's kind of like my log. I see a picture come up from my memories. I know exactly where I caught them. I know what I caught them on. And you have to make a pattern. If it's a tree around a point, a secondary point, some weeds, you got to remember that time of year, temperature, and everything. So the more you study it, if you're going to try to catch fish and be consistent, you have to study them things. You can't just potluck it down there and go catch a bunch of crappie. Just the way it is.
Now, when you say study them, how do you study them? Keeping a log,
yes,
stuff like that?
Keeping a log. Yes, sir. What I do is I keep a log, and I use Navionics a lot, especially if I'm going to a new area. Navionics is an app on your iPad. You can get it on your phone. You can be sitting at home and look, and you might see a creek channel that swings next to the bank, and if there's some structure there close by, a stump, a drop off, a hump, somebody sunk some brush there, you got to kind of try to repeat that somewhere. So Navionics lets you kind of repeat. If you can look up the river and these creeks, if they formatted the maps, some of them are not, some of them are, but that's what I do a lot of. Even the river I fished, the Warrior in Demopolis, I know a lot about it, but I'm always looking on Navionics, looking to see, hey, there may be a similarity between this creek and that creek, or this standing timber and that standing timber, or just whatever they're holding on at the particular time. That's what you want to do.
All right, here's what I want to do. I want you to take me on a fishing trip with Shane Jones, crappie fishing.
Yes, sir.
On a body of water that you know.
That I know.
All right, let's talk. That me and you get in the boat. It's day crack. We're going out. We're going on a body of water.
Yes, sir.
Let's just say, just to make the story good.
Yes, sir.
Right now, the water conditions right now, I guess the Warrior River's back down to normal.
I'll tell you right now. I follow an app on there all the time. I'm studying that thing constantly. It's pulled up right here on my phone.
Yeah.
I'm finna tell you what it is. It's 83.3.
Is that high or low?
Yes, sir. That's high. 75 is normal. So
Okay, so it's
most
up.
of the time in the winter, 78, 77. So you're dealing with, 7, 8 foot high water.
All right. Well, take me on a fishing
All right.
trip with you today. What we gonna do? What we gonna look for? Walk us through what you're looking for, and use your electronics and
Yes, sir.
and what you gonna use. You gonna chunk at them. You gonna
Yes, sir.
long pole. Let's go fishing.
We'll
with
break it
Shane,
down. I'll tell
Shane
you,
Jones crappie
if
fishing.
I launch, it's let's say lock 5. There's a pier there, and I can look and see how far the water is over that pier. If I know I'm looking at it, I say it's just a foot or two high. That's going to determine where I'm going. There's certain creeks that I know don't hold fish in the winter. I don't waste my time in them. I don't catch enough fish there to go blowing up in there and hope they're in there.
And right now, you consider this winter. This is not a transition
Yes, sir.
between winter and
No,
spring.
no, sir.
We're still in the winter pattern.
But reason why I say that, because the creeks they're not big, wide, deep mouth creeks. I mean, you go in these things, they're 8 foot deep, running back to 4. So they're not big bodies of deep water, like a lake or something. But I'm usually putting my boat in, and I'm looking at that pier. I'm looking to see how deep it is, and I look at the water color. And the main river can be muddy. If it's rained a lot, the creeks clear up a lot till the water backs up. So I usually don't tie what color jig I'm going on till I get in there where I'm going. Even though I don't care if I call them on black chartreuse or a shad color, natural color, but I always have a blackish chartreuse on. I don't care if I go the clearest water in the country. I'm always gonna have one on. But I usually go in, and I'll go to, I say not the hottest spot I have. I have me a little milk run that I know that I'm going to consistently go and check, see if the fish are there, and if they're not. But I'm going to drop that trolling motor, start my live scope. I'm not going to side scan. I'm not going to try to blow through there. I'm not going to let them know I'm even there. If I know that water's shallow, I'm not going to side scan it.
You're going to stop right at the mouth of the creek?
Yes, sir. I'm going to drop my trolling motor. I'm going to take off. Reason being, there's been several times that I've been talking to somebody like Big Daddy. We're talking, and I take a little route that I don't normally take, and I find another stump.
That's what I did yesterday. I did exactly what you told me to do.
Yes, sir.
I stopped at those creek mouths, and you wouldn't believe the stuff I found. Now, I didn't catch no fish, but
it doesn't matter. They're going to be there.
Yeah.
It's just like, any other animal. They're going to have the certain habits. They're going where they're going when they go. But I'm going to drop that trolling motor. I'm going to run up through there. The way I run my trolling motor, I run it on 3. I'm bumping it and I'm stopping it. I'm bumping it and I'm stopping. I'm not running it wide open all the time. That way, if I do get up on an open water fish or another stump, when I put it in reverse, I'm not backwashing it. I'm just taking my time. I'm not in a hurry. I mean, fishing will teach you patience, if anything.
Yeah.
So I go up through there. Say I got a root ball that I know is close to the bank. I shine in there. Boom. It's got 2 or 3 fish in it, or it's got 20. If it's got 2 or 3 fish in it, I'm going to try to see if there are any hot fish. Most time it might be one. They may be stacked in there. And then I'm going to watch them how they come out with a bait. If they chase that bait a long ways, or they pull out, I'm thinking they're pretty hot. If they just kind of don't pay no attention, I catch 1 or 2. I say, all right, that tree's in 5 foot of water. I'm going to go look at a little bit deeper water. I'm going to slide up to 8 or 9 or 10 foot.
So you don't catch those fish?
Oh, no. There's a lot of lookers. People don't understand. If you see a limit of fish in my boat, 45, 60, whatever, I've seen 500, 600, 700, sometimes 1,000 fish.
Wow.
And that's a lot of people don't understand. You're like, man, you caught the crap out of them. But it's a lot of work when they're not biting. That's a lot of water covered. That's a lot of cast. I mean, I tell people when I go on these guide trips and these fish, if we bust 100 fish, you ain't learned nothing. You ain't learned a thing. We catch 30, 40, you pick those fish off.
Yeah.
And you've learned a little bit. So it's a kind of a double-edged sword. You catch a lot of fish and you're like, man, that's great, but you're not learning anything. But I'm going to slip up and go that 8 or 9, 10 foot. If it's loaded, I'm going to throw that 16th ounce jig. Let's say I throw that blue, black and chartreuse in there. And I ease it through there and I short hop it. Boom, I get a bite. Boom, the guy with me gets a bite. I'm like, well, and I fire my look in there and I'm going to be like, well, there's a lot of fish in there. Then I'll go down to a 30-second. If they're not wanting to chase that bait, I'm on what I call kind of dead sticking it. I'm going to throw it in there, watch it go down to the level of the fish. I'm going to pull it in that top and I'm just going to hold it there and barely move it. I'm going to be easing it along. And a lot of those fish that just get tired of that thing aggravating them, banging on them limbs, they'll eat it. Now, I'm not saying all of them, but a lot of kind of dead sticking it. And then I'm going to pick them off like that. If I can, if I don't catch them, then I'm going to go up to the next top. Now, if I caught multiple fish there, I'm going to come out with that long rod and I'm going to drop it in there on the nose again.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go down there because the way I use that long rod, a lot of people that I go fishing with and they fish with me, uh, the live scope's going to tell what you do right and what you do wrong. A lot of people jerk the jig where it's jumping
Yeah.
and jumping.
Yeah.
There's nothing in the water that eats the jumps. I mean, there's nothing.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to swim and twitch and move. And so I take that dig and do short little hops or shake my rod. And them fish know that bait's there. You know, if we're standing in the dark, Big Daddy, I come up and stand by you, you gonna know I'm there. They can sense that jig's close to them. So you ain't got a lot of movement. You know, make sure you don't bump their tail or nothing, but you come over their head and get it close to them. But again, when you dead sticking that bait in there, I'm gonna work every angle I can on that tree. I'm gonna fish it from this way, this way. There's a lot of chops that I catch fish in that I have to face the bank. Park on the bank and throw out. It's a cedar tree.
Mm-hmm.
And people don't realize that cedar's laying that way. I come against the grain of those cedars falling in those gaps, and it's banging and then just sliding over that thick brush. I'll get down in it. You can't really, you think you could get down in this way, but you can't. So when you're working that cedar tree to the bank,
you need to be on the bank throwing out to the tip of the tree instead of being at the tip of the tree throwing toward the bank.
Especially a cedar or a thick brushy tree, because I figured that out by accident one time. A friend of mine that likes to court and jig fish, he said, "Man, I catch a lot of fish right here." And I'm like, "Well, okay, let's check it out." And we caught 70, 80 fish that day. It was unreal. But we went in there and he's corking jigging, and I'm realizing that jig's going in those crevices of that, or the gaps in that cedar.
Mm-hmm.
And my jig's kind of going over him because I'm reeling, and his jig's falling down, settling down. So I went to the bank, dropped my pole. Well, actually, I didn't have a pole the first time. I just put my motor in the mud, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
And I threw out there, and I come up through there like people throw a shaky head. I'm just easing it through that. Boom, whitefish hits it, I catch them. I do it over and over and over. From then on, I went to approach that certain tree. That's what I did.
Go to the bank.
Yes, sir.
So
people ain't got a clue what I'm doing. I'm just part of the bank. It looks like I'm catfishing.
Yeah.
You know? And hey, why those fish like it? I don't care. I'm not going to argue with them. I'm trying to put them in the live well.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what, that's the stuff you learn by time on the water. And I could tell Big Daddy, hey, exactly where this spot is, turn his butt around, and he's going to catch fish. You catch a lot of fish. You learn ways to fish different type of cover, whether it be grass or trees like that. But,
well, that's another question I was going to ask you. How important, and this is an issue that I have a lot of problems with, especially if you got a little wind.
Yes, sir.
Boat control.
Huge. Eric Cagle, he's a personal friend of mine. I talk to him a lot. He's one of the best fishermen in the country. And when I went with him,
if not the best in the country,
on the river, he taught me a lot. I went out with him several times, and I talked to him weekly. And you watch that man run a boat, and it's like somebody running a piece of equipment, a skid steer, or anything else, knows what they're doing. But when you run in that live scope and you see a fish over here, 10 o'clock, and the wind's blowing hard, you're gonna have to. It's like flying a kite. You're gonna take a left till you get straight on the wind, and you ease up to that fish and try to catch him if he's on cover, or if he's. Sometimes they'll let you do it if they're not spooky. Most time in this stained water, you can get away with a lot more. But boat control is huge. You got to learn it. If it's not from somebody, you're going to learn when you spook a fish. Hey, I don't need to be doing that.
Yeah. Well, first time I got my live scope, I remember the first time I saw one. What do you call it? Christmas tree?
Yes, sir.
Full of
yes, sir.
crappie.
Yes, sir.
And I went up there too hot, and I turned my trolling motor,
blew them out
just like a covey of quail.
That's right. That's what you don't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to. I run my forward. My forward feet. I'll think of it in a minute. On my live scope, about 45, and I'm scanning. I get up there 45 feet. I see some interference. I know that that's the top that I'm hunting, especially if I fished it before. Then I'll back it down to 40, and then when I get in there, I'll back it down to 30. And that's everybody knows how what a first down is. That's 30 feet. That's 10 yards.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody and their mama knows that. So it's nice, but you just say, I'm 30 feet. I'm gonna pitch in there and get it down there and work that tree. But that's how I fish 30 feet. Now the clearer water, you got to go further. But here, and what's crazy, sometimes if you know how to not to win and not to run that trolling motor, I mean, I've caught fish and set the hook and they've hit the bottom of the boat.
Yeah.
I mean, as long as you're slipping in there and you ain't got a bunch of chop from the wind and your boat slapping, you can ease up on these fish. And It's like a stalking. This is like stalking up on a deer. I mean, you're hunting and fishing at the same time. So
And you know what? I'm glad you said that because I got some friends. One of them's name is Joe Allen Dunn,
yes, sir.
and and I got him in my shed right now. I don't know what I paid for them 16-foot rods,
Yes, sir.
and I used them one time. To hell with that, using 16
It's a
foot
lot of work,
rods
man.
in 5 foot of water. Hell no,
It's a lot. I've got a rod. It's a Jinko. It's a 13.5. It don't weigh nothing.
Yeah, I can handle a 12.
16 is a load because you got to keep it on your forearm to counterbalance.
Yeah, and you ain't got but 6 foot of a line out, and when you catch a fish, you got to let the line out.
I had to swing it in the boat. I got a 12-foot net, man. It was a circus first time I set the hook on a big one. I slapped my buddy Shane. Hell, he had one come over his fin, went in my shin. I mean, it's fun. But,
yeah,
you know,
and let's go back to boat control
Yes,
now
sir.
because time on the water teaches you that.
Period.
But Gerald Overstreet taught me this up in them stumps
Yes, sir.
at Buzzard's Roost. He said, Big Daddy, you got to face the wind.
That's right.
He said, face the wind.
That's right.
You see them, get up on them, catch them, let the wind blow you back, and then go back up on them. Don't. That's the way you got to do it.
Yes,
and that was the best tip I ever got.
That's exactly right, especially if you know where they are or where they should be.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they've got poles now with paddles on them that'll slow you down. Now, a lot of people use them in open water fishing. The stumps, you can't get away with it. But I run one Minn Kota Raptor on my boat. Only reason I pin the rear end down where I won't go forward.
Mm-hmm.
I can control the left and right. And
how do you pin it down?
I've got that Minn Kota Raptor. It's a hydraulic little anchor. And when I fish so shallow, it's an 8-foot anchor.
Mm-hmm.
So I pin that rear end down, and then there's some trees that's falling in the creek on a ledge, and I'll get below them, and I'll work that whole area. And then I'll pick that Raptor up, that anchor, and go up a little further, drop, and work the rest of the limbs.
Mm-hmm.
I'm picking that tree apart. Sometimes they're on the end of the limb, sometimes they're on the trunk. The root balls holds a lot of fish. People don't realize, especially if you got current. But I work that whole
in
tree.
that shallow water too.
Oh, yeah, yes,
very shallow
yes,
water.
Yes, sir. It's most of that water 6-7 foot, and some of it, by the time I fish it all, it may be 3 foot. But you don't. It's different. I've been down there when it's got ice in my guides, and them things is 2 or 3 foot deep. Don't ask me why, but that's why I fish it all. I mean, you don't never know where they're going to be.
Well, the boat control is. I wanted you to mention that's very, very important, and also your accuracy casting. You got to know where to cast to.
I tell people that go with me, you're not going to be any worse at it than this day. When I show you what I'm doing, when I was taught, like I said, I didn't just come up with it. I call it short line. Eric Cagle's the best in the world as far as I'm concerned about it. Everybody found out what he was doing, but he got me in there, and I've done a lot of pitching and flipping bass fishing. And when you're trying to be accurate, I tell people get in the yard, and get you a solo cup and pitch towards that solo cup. Reason being, if you got a 2-pound fish, he's sitting there, a pound and a half, just a good crappie sitting there, right here at 11 o'clock off the front of the boat, and it's 20 feet. You're going to flip out there to him and come over his head. Now, if you miss that fish by a foot or two, that thing's got a 20-degree cone, so you can be off and still think you're going by it. Mm-hmm. If that fish don't react, you didn't go by that fish. I mean, if that fish, I'm going to use my phone as illustration. That fish is sitting there like this right here, and that cone's 20 degrees. You can come by him and he not move.
Yeah.
But if you come over that fish's head and you see him kind of vibrate or do a little turn, a lot of people that sing live, you'll see him kind of do this. And you take that jig away from him, that fish is going to react. Now, whether he follows it or eats it, I mean, sometimes they'll just come up and hit it with their mouth closed. I've seen them bump it just to say they can do it. I guess I don't know. I've watched them and it's kind of frustrating, but I had a lot to do it this past weekend. So.
All right, you mentioned jigs. Now,
yes, sir.
You do not use minnows.
No, sir. I don't.
I went yesterday, and I know you saw the post.
You tagged me. Yes,
I did the Shane Jones crappie fishing.
That's good.
All I threw was minnows.
That's right.
I didn't catch but 2 fish.
Hey.
I found. Oh man, I tell you what, I don't know who the person was that put that 5-gallon bucket with all them bamboo.
Oh yeah.
I found about 5 of those.
There you go. Well, God bless them. That's all I can tell you.
Yeah.
Now, you can't hide from that live scope now. And hey, that's what you're looking for. But I tell people all the time, I fish for minnows. Well, I understand minnows will catch them, but I put them in there and watch 10 swim up to it. just because
I have to.
they didn't want to react to it. But the best way to get good at jig fishing, is the jig fish. When I used to try to learn how to flip, all I brought was my flipping rod. I was determined to learn how to flip. I didn't have a casting rod. So you're either going to learn how or you're not. And if you give up, you're really never going to learn. So.
Well, I've been learning since 1987 when them North Alabama jig boys. Have you ever tried a B&B weedless
yes,
jig?
I've seen them.
Yeah.
I've seen them.
And they used to come down here and wear us out on Miller's Ferry with them hand-tied weedless jigs.
That's right. Well, you could put a jig in the cover. You can't outfish them. I mean, you people don't realize the guy that I'm friends with, I talked to they built some rods I use. He said, man, I just got a live scope, and I didn't realize that we wasn't even getting down in the cover good. We was fishing the outside.
Yeah.
So they were fishing some fish that was suspended on the outside of the cover. He's like, man, I didn't even know. We was barely bumping it. So he's like, man, it opened his eyes up to a whole nother. He's missing a lot of fish. Bringing his jig by some fish because he was just, touching the outside of the cover.
Well, I am trying to transition from minnows. I tell you, minnows are, to me, a pain in the rump, especially when you can't get none on Sunday. You have to buy them on Saturday, and they try to keep them alive.
You're right.
And then you go and don't catch nothing, and you got a pretty good investment in the 100 minnoes, and you got to try to keep them alive till you go back. It's impossible to do.
Well, I'll tell you a little trick that I shouldn't share, but I will, because I like people. Man, they're panfish. They're put on this earth to eat.
Yeah,
they're put on this earth to and people enjoy and have fellowship and eat with your friends. That's what I like about it.
Yeah.
Only reason I'm glad I catch them because I can have fun with my friends.
Yeah.
But during the summer,
and you got plenty of friends when you got crappie.
Oh Lord, yeah. But the people always said, man, why you catching more fish from me? Well, you got to realize my jig smells like fish because I've caught more fish. That hair jig especially carries a lot more fish smell. So in the summer, everybody that's caught white crappie, they have a distinct smell to them. They're a little louder.
They sure do.
I take that jig and I smear it all over that back of that crappie. Whether it helps or not, I don't know. I got a lot of witnesses that I've eaten because it has worked. So
caught a heap of them.
Yes, sir. And I do that little stuff, drag that jig and throw it out there. And I use some garlic spray. I've used everything, and whether it makes a difference or not, I mean, once you start catching fish, even the braided line I use, people don't realize when that fish swallows it, that braided line carries some scent from that fish. Mono and don't do it, but that braided line I use, to me, it just carries scent.
All right, and we're going to talk about the braided line and your gear
the
next segment. We're going to talk about the livestock next segment. But now, what about how deep is the Warrior River? Do you ever do any deep water drop shot fishing?
Man, that's boring to me, but hey, people catch them. I ain't patient. I say I'm patient, but me and my boss man went to Norfolk Lake in Arkansas. It may have been a couple Thanksgivings ago. That water was 30 foot deep.
Yeah.
Brush pile. I had to put a split shot on top of a jig to get it down there. And when one hit it, thank God I had braid because I felt it. We caught some big striped nose and crappie and stuff, but I'm not saying you can't catch some, especially on the main river. They're to me, the deeper fish don't get affected by the cold fronts. They're affected really by current, how much water's on top of them. But main river fish, they're a lot more healthier sometimes, but they just don't get affected by cold fronts so much, the main river fish. I like them.
You don't do much deep water
fishing. No, sir, I don't.
I'm a deep, I used to think you couldn't catch them.
Right.
They wasn't 18 and 20 foot deep, but now I'm changing.
Yeah, me too. The good Lord showed me the light after that boat race. I'm telling you, I thought it was a fluke, but it's not, guys. And when you're down there in August and you're catching fish, 3, 4, 5 foot with that sun beaming, and
I've done it. I've been up in Pine Barren Creek.
Yes, sir.
And in August, the water temperature is 90 degrees and catching 5 foot deep. Couldn't believe it. For 30 years, I thought they went deep when it was hot.
Well, you think you know what, you was talking about live scope. Live scope's done away with a lot of myths. I was coming up a ledge off a tree, and these crappie were swimming down the ledge and eating my jig. I was taught since their eyes on top of the head, they don't go down. But, you go to aquarium, you watch that fish, he'll lean his old head back and eat. And that's the way he faces. Everybody thinks they do that, but they'll go down, sideways, whatever they want to do.
Yeah, I have, and I can tell you, I've caught them in that deep water in the mud. You won't see them. I used to
Oh,
drop
yeah.
my
Yes,
minnow
sir.
down all the way to the bottom and reel it about twice, and
Yes, sir.
they'd come out of that mud. You can see them on the live scope.
They do that. I guess they do it when it's cold. I don't know if that mud holds some more heat. I don't know. I don't know, but I've seen them. A lot of times, them open water fish will be suspended in the water column. You'll throw at them, you'll see them go whoop, straight down the bottom. You're like, I know that's crappie, but I mean, then he don't want them ate. It's hard to catch them, but they will do that.
Hey, y'all, we're talking with Shane Jones. If you have not subscribed to or liked his YouTube channel, Shane Jones Fishing, I'm telling you, he is putting some stuff on there that's I'm an old veteran fisherman, and he's making me a better fisherman by watching his videos.
I like sharing information, man. It's I got a lot of friends that still bass fish, and man, they're secretive and man, they buying different lures and ordering from Japan and all this stuff.
Yeah.
I got a couple of jigs I'm on throw. If they don't eat them, I'm going home.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it is. And
so you'd have been and not caught any fish.
Oh Lord, man, what are you talking about? I've had my humble pie, something you don't even want to talk about it. But hey, I know not to do it again. That's the thing about it. Like I tell you.
All right, now what do you say? You know not to do it again. What do you look at? The weather, the water, what do you
who
look
knows?
at?
When I go down there and
when will you not go fishing?
I don't know. I don't like to fish when it's pretty and it's bluebird skies. I can't stand.
That's what it was yesterday.
That's what it was yesterday. I had a fish looking. They don't have eyelids. They don't have sunglasses. They don't like that. They don't like that sun coming through there. That's bright. If the water's clear, and then the pressure messes with them. I don't know if it's like maybe like me and you having a stomach ache. I don't know. I don't know what does it, but you catch an ugly dreary day like today, and I've caught them in thunderstorms, snowstorms.
Oh yeah, that's what I started following. You'd rather fish in the rain than anybody I ever saw.
I'll mess my hair up. I know that for sure. I ain't got none, so but I will. Me and Tommy. June the 6th last year, we caught 158 whitefish, kept our limit of 60. And a thunderstorm come up, and we were on the bank, and I didn't want to run out in it, so we just kind of hunkered down. And as that storm passed by, we caught fish like it was unbelievable. That's due to the pressure change.
Yeah,
it wasn't nothing I done or he done. It was just a pressure change.
All right, let me ask you another question. All right. Now you were talking about going in those shallow creeks,
yes,
8 foot back to 4 foot.
Yes, sir.
If you're on a reservoir like William Bill Danley, Lake Miller's Ferry,
yes, sir.
You got creeks like Pine Barren Creek, Foster Creek, Mill Creek, Shell Creek,
yes, sir.
But you also got a little of those little sloughs like you told me about up the north end.
Yes, sir.
That's what you're talking about on the Warrior River.
That's right.
Are those those the same as they are?
Yes.
In the deep lakes as it is the shallow lakes?
Well, the deep lakes, it's hard to find a narrow mouth silted in creek on a deep water reservoir or a river like the Coosa River or Lay Lake. They don't have the same kind of silted in creeks, but those fish are trapped in there. Whether you realize or not, they're not just going to run out of that foot deep channel.
Mm-hmm.
They get when the water gets up, they get pushed in there, and they're not going to leave. So they done made a home in there. And if you look, you drop your trolling motor in there, shad in there, there's crappie in there, there's bass in there. Every kind of fish you want to catch is in those creeks. And I like it. It's just like having your own private lake. It's just you just gotta find it.
I mean, and it's 1,000 of them between the Miller's Ferry locking down and the Jones Bluff locking down.
I've had to push. You don't want to get in there and get hung up. Obviously, you have to pay attention to the water. But if the water's up at 2 or 3 feet, man, you can ease back in those places. And you got a lot of cypress knees, a lot of trees here. Man, it won't be long. Them male crappie, them black males will be pushing up there eating bugs, everything else, trying to get ready for them females.
And it's the same way with flood. You was telling me yesterday when it's flooded, they like to get up in that flooded area and eat those bugs and everything.
I actually looked up some old articles for some old timers, and I called Eric. I was like, "Hey man, it's gonna be high. What am I gonna do?" He said, "Look, man, drop your trolling motor and go find some fish." And you're exactly right. So that's what I told him. I dropped my trolling motor, went in this creek, and the creek was about 8 foot high. The main river's probably 14. It was up. And I went in there, looked in the channel, Nothing. It's ghost town. Went to the bank, and where the original bank was before the water went over it, that's where the fish were.
Mm-hmm.
So it came with secondary cover, just like the trees off the original bank were before I started catching them. Now they're spread out because the water's rising, they're moving, but they were actually on that original bank, up and down stuff. It was new wood, and I guess it's like wood ducks, and when it floods, wood ducks get to going eat new acorns, and they get into flooded waters. Those crappie are gonna go up and say, "Hey man, this is some brush I hadn't been by. I'm gonna check it out." There's bugs in the water. There's shad up there eating some algae that growing on the bank or weed or whatever. Everybody's falling. They're following each other, and that's what makes them fish move up there.
Mm-hmm. And how do you fish that flooded tumble like that?
Man, I get out with the technology live scope. I'm easing up the bank, and I'm flaring my trolling motor in there looking.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking to my left, and if I see a group of fish, I'm gonna if the wind's blowing against me, I'm gonna let the wind blow back. I'm gonna get in there, and we're gonna try to pop those fish. It may be singles. That's what I had to do Saturday. I had a trip with a guy, and I told him the water was gonna be high, and he was like, "Man, I don't care. I want to see the scope run. I got one." And I said, "Well, I can't make you no promises. We're gonna go after him." And we found some fish.
That's the video you did.
Yes, sir. That's the video. And I didn't show many fish catches because it was.
Well, you showed it at the end, the fish you caught.
Right, but a lot of videos I watch, they're reeling in fish, and I'm grabbing them. They ain't telling you.
I'd rather see how to catch them than watch you catch them.
That's exactly.
I really have.
Well, you're not learning anything. If you don't do nothing but pick up something from every video I put out, I try to put a little bit of information out there. Hey, this is what I do, man. And the thing is, you don't have to go where I fish. If that water you fish is similar to the place that I fish, Alabama River, Lock 8, all up through Roebuck Landing, you could find the same type of areas I fish.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not, like I said, it's not rocket science. You don't need to put a lot of thought into it. You just have to put time in.
Time on the water.
That's exactly right. You can't make up for it. It's just, you just ain't going to do it. And then, like I said, when you can keep a log of it if you like, write it down. It doesn't matter. You got the best contractors, workers in the world to me. They go on past practice. They know what they've done when this happened. They know what to do when this doesn't happen. It's the same way when you're fishing. You got to have a little procedure and a thought process when you go out there. No.
All right. Here's the question that turned, and how many times have I heard, "Oh, we didn't catch nothing. The water's too muddy."
Oh yeah.
We didn't catch nothing. The water's too muddy.
I've heard that.
So we done knocked out the theory that the water's too high. The water never gets too high.
No, sir.
And the water never gets too muddy. I got a buddy named Gerald Overstreet. He'd rather fish in the mud and
hey, they eat every day just like me and you do. That's the thing. It's I believe like muddy water that's all got a lot of silt in it. Looks like coffee creamer. That fish don't like that. But muddy water, stained water, no. The fish are naturally going to be shallower. First off, the bait fish are distraught. They can't see. They're clouded up. They're more erratic. Those fish know it too. Like I said, they're not stupid, man. They know, hey, there's going to be a lot of fish I can ambush in here.
Mm-hmm.
And they know the carp and the gar, they're all going to move up. And I've watched it on that live scope, and believe it or not, I think crappie follow them carp around because the carp break those shad up. And the carp ain't feeding on them, obviously. But they're out there everywhere. I'll see a crappie sitting dead on a carp almost on top of it and catch him. You're like, what in the world is he doing? But I think they just using it as to bust up the shad.
Well, and ambush the shad.
Who knows?
But now, muddy water. Tell me your ideal technique for fishing muddy water.
I'd rather catch them short line. I'd rather take my 6.6 rod and pitch out there to black and chartreuse jig, swim it by them, and they come out of the cover, eat my jig. That's what I want. I'm more consistent that way. But if they're high in the water column, and you can't hardly get it. If they're only 2 or 3 foot deep, you can't hardly get your jig right under the surface. So you have to break out the long rod. I made myself do it.
Yeah.
Break out the long rod, pull that line out, ease that jig right over, and hey, set it on top of it. Let him come up. Boop. You have to use a long rod or use a 30-second jig.
Now, you was talking about a long rod. Your long rod is 13 feet.
Yes, 13.5 foot. Yes,
yeah.
Sir. Yes, sir. That's right. I've got a little spinning reel on, and I'll pull that line out. I use my line. This is how I control my depth, is with my right hand.
Mm-hmm.
I'll lower that jig in there if I can see him. But if I'm lowering in the tree, I'm going to lower it down until I get it I'll get a bite. Boop.
Mhm.
Then I'll know I can gauge by my hand. That's 2 foot, plus
Mhm.
the line that's on the end of my rod.
Yeah.
You have to kind of think, hey, I done dropped that jig 2 foot in the water and I let a foot here. So that's 3 foot. Boom. That's
Mhm.
where I need to go.
Mhm. Depth is the
Huge,
key. Is the
huge,
key. Now,
huge.
the way they are right now, they scattered out in
Oh
every
yeah,
depth and
man. Man,
everywhere.
what are you talking about? They're big time. You just got to cover some water now to catch some fish.
Yeah,
You might
but
get lucky, when the river calms down, they'll be bunched up, especially a bunch of males in a brush top. And you can
and I'll
catch them.
tell you something else I learned yesterday,
Yes,
Shane. That chasing them big fish with a live scope is 2 things you got to have.
yes, sir.
You got to have your transducer for your live scope on your trolling motor,
100%.
and you got to have a foot control trolling motor. You can't
No, sir.
use a pole and run your trolling motor and fish at the same
That's
time.
what got
you
me.
can't do
That's
it.
what got me. That pole and all good for brush top.
Yeah.
Unless the wind isn't blowing good and you got some, they're just sitting there and you could just turn your pole and to it. If the wind's blowing just right and you can leave it on one and you can go.
Yeah.
It takes some coordination to use a pole. Well, my foot, there's been trips where I'm by myself. I never even look up out of the water.
Mm-hmm.
I'm using that technology. I'm firing over here. It's kind of like quail hunting.
Yeah.
One comes out, boom, I'm firing at him. I'm trying to catch him. I never pick my head up off the screen, and I'm looking for those fish, off the front, off to the side, and I'm trying to pick them off. The more targets you got, of course, the better you are going to get at it. But the open water fishing, you can put some fish in a boat very fast.
but you can't do it with a pole
No, sir, no,
and
sir,
and
no,
a and a one of these
remotes
remote control.
or
You got to have a foot control
Yes,
trolling
sir.
motor. Your
Yes, sir.
your transducer's got to be on your trolling motor.
Yes,
You
sir, on the
can't do it
shaft.
with a pole.
That's
You
right.
just
Well,
can't do it.
You probably can, but that's a lot of moving.
You can't. You
that's-
ain't got enough hands. I'm
that's-
telling you. I'm telling
That's
you.
a lot of people are using the spot lock trolling motor. They're spot locking and then they're turning the pole in the, in that trolling motor.
Spotlight is a good to keep you on a place
Yes,
if you're
sir.
getting a fish off.
Yes,
That's the
sir.
only
Yeah.
damn
To me,
thing. It's good.
keep you from blowing back. I
Yeah,
100%
yeah.
agree. Some people go up to the top and spot lock it, start doing it, and that trolling motor, it's making so much racket. And you can hear it yourself.
And you can't. And if you got your live scope transducer on a pole, you can't. You got to move it.
It's aggravating. But like I said, I learned it on my trolling motor shaft, and that's the way I suggest doing it. But
time on the water.
Time on the water. It does. You can't make up for it. It doesn't matter. To me, it's just like hitting a nail with a hammer. If you hadn't done it in a while, you're gonna miss that thing being the nail. But if you swing it a bunch, guess what? You're gonna hammer that thing in.
That's right. Shane Jones, crappie fishing. All right. I think anything we didn't cover, anything. I think we covered about everything. Now, the next segment, I want to talk about the gear you use,
Yes, sir.
and I want you to explain your experience with the live scope. And I had a man texted me this morning and wanted to know if the live scope was worth the money. And I said, listen, for me, it was worth the money.
Yes, sir.
He said, well, how do you learn? I said, I watched 1,000 YouTube videos.
Me too.
And it took me 40 hours. I kept up with it. When I got it, I said, I'm going to figure out how long it takes me to learn how to use. It took me 40 hours on the water and talking to people like you and Gerald and Eric Cagle. And that's, don't get intimidated. It takes time on the water, and it took me 40 hours.
You're not going to, I'll tell you the whole background on that. Of course, I went out with Eric and we caught fish and he was doing the operating. Of course, if he tells me to pitch there, it's a lot easier. But I started out with a 93 SV. That's a 9-inch unit. It's a good unit. It got me into it. I caught plenty of fish with it. I would get in the top and just kind of flip in there and pick it apart. And then I had a buddy of mine come down that he had learned how to open water fish. And Rob Grosey, one of my best friends, we went in this creek. It's a big creek. And I watched that guy, he's a buddy of mine, catch 45, 50 fish in that open water. I caught 5 or 6. I couldn't line up on them. And this is God's honest truth. You can call Rob and ask him. We were sitting there and he said, hey, don't move your trolling motor. He caught one under my trolling motor, like right under me, 8 or 10 foot deep. And I got humbled that day. And I'm like, you know what? That's it for me. Ain't no, I'm not gonna have somebody catch fish in an area like that, and I'm not getting part of it. So I made myself learn how to run that thing.
Yeah, and that's
I
what you
put
gotta do.
it down. Trolling motor time and screen time. If you're going to use that technology, you better do it.
Yeah.
You're going to have to put time in. You're not going to buy the best unit. You can go buy 8616, 8612, the best unit they make, and you're still not going to know how to run it.
That's right. You got to know how to run it.
You got to,
and that's what we're going to talk about next segment.
Yes, sir.
On the Getting Outdoors podcast, we're talking with Shane Jones.
Yes, sir.
And I'm telling you, he's spilling his guts today.
Yeah.
On the Getting Outdoors podcast. Y'all don't go nowhere. We'll be right back. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Getting Outdoors podcast, episode 155. And if you didn't learn something in that last segment, you might as well forget it. But I think the main thing you want to teach everybody, Shane, is time on the water.
Yes,
that's what it takes. And everybody I talk to, professional fishermen, professional hunters, no matter what you do, is time on the water. That's how you learn.
Pay attention. That's
and
exactly
if you
right.
say, oh, it's too hot or it's too rainy, and I have become a fair weather fisherman in my old age.
Yes, I understand.
But you have inspired me to be a better fisherman. You really have.
Well, like I said, I enjoy it. And I like people to get out there and catch them. I like to talk to people. Then they send me pictures. Say, hey, I caught 52 or I caught 30. Man, I'm like, heck yeah. Especially when they're just learning. And, I tell them all the time, you're not going that when you first start, you're not going to get any worse at it.
All right. Before we get into your equipment and the live scope, let me ask you a serious question. I hear this a lot, and you mentioned it a while ago about you love to eat them. I love to eat them.
Yes, sir.
Do you think all this modern technology and all this stuff, like me and you are probably getting to people that are going to be better fishermen because they listen to this podcast?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Do you think that it's affecting our resource?
No, sir.
I don't either.
There's so many fish that don't eat that jig. Like I said in the other segment, if you see me have 45, 50 fish, I've seen 10 times that many on that screen. And like I said, the ones that bite, the ones that don't. And the state set limits for a reason. If anything, I'm helping because you used to catch a bunch of 8-inch fish down here, and I eat them 9, 10-inch fish. They eat better than big ones than me. And hey, customer that goes with me, or we won't have fish fry, that's what I'm keeping. I'll turn them big 2+ loose.
And it goes right back to that live scope. It has changed my opinion. Not, everything that I did up until I had a live scope, I don't do it anymore.
That's right.
It has shown me fish, and it is no shortage of fish on Lake Wilkes Ferry. I promise you that.
It's fertile water.
Now, the fish might be smarter.
Oh, yeah.
They might be smarter.
Yes.
And you said the bluebirds, it's a lot of stuff that goes into it. And I'm no fisheries biologist, but I can tell you time on the water teaches you a lot about the fish.
That's right. I mean, I kid around about engineers making rules that's hard to go by because they don't do the work.
Yeah.
And that's the same way. It's easy to say I caught them on this day. My buddy called me. He's like, man, I caught 50, 60. It's Monday and Tuesday. I say, hey, buddy, come on down here when the bluebird sky's hitting and it's flooded on the weekend.
Yeah.
Show me 50 or 60.
It's the same way with the state. They come in here and do a shocking survey.
Yes, sir.
And once every 3 years.
What day you doing it?
Yeah. What day you doing it?
What day?
Yeah.
And, like I said, it's, you always heard, what is it, 90% of the fish are in 10% of the water at certain times of the year. And I believe that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I called a buddy of mine on a Thursday night. Said, hey, I know where some fish are. He went in there Friday, caught 60. Court and jig, no live scope. He's a cop in Demopolis right there. So my butt goes in there Saturday, bluebird skies, cold, put my trolling motor down with the live scope, go over there, and it's a ghost town.
Yeah.
I catch 10 fish, go upriver, catch 45 fish upriver. Hey, I'm doing something.
Yeah.
I thought I was on fire.
Finding the fish is the key to it.
So Sunday I put in upriver where I caught them 45. Guess what? I caught 10. I went back to where I started Saturday, and we caught 60 something. Like they grew there overnight.
Yeah. It's unbelievable.
It is. It's crazy.
All right, let's talk about your gear that you use when you go fishing. Now,
yes, sir.
When Shane Jones is going fishing, tell me about the gear you gonna have in your boat.
Okay. Usually I got 4 or 5 casting rods. I have a company, Lost Creek Customs. They built some custom rods for me.
And I'm going to put
yes, sir,
all that information in the details of this podcast. So when you hear Lost Creek Customs, Reuben Floyd jig. What is it?
Flores,
jig.
yes, sir.
Reuben Floro jig.
Yes, sir.
It's all in this details of this
Yes,
podcast.
sir. So I actually brought one of them with me. I had this rod built. It's a custom rod. The nuts on the back. It's got a short butt because I can't stand it poking me in the belly. I told Big Daddy.
It's a custom rod.
It's a custom rod. It actually has my signature on it. I just helped design it. But I usually the night before, I'm making sure I have enough line on my spool because I'll get down there and there won't be enough to pitch and I'll be aggravated the rest of the day.
Now, what kind of line is that?
This is cast king braid. This is 8-pound braid. I've been using it for several years. That's just a braid I use. Somebody liable to send me some that's better. I don't know. I've always used this, but I bought it off Amazon a while back and used it. It's slick and does well. I told
it's 5-pound braid, right?
Yeah, this is 8 pounds.
This 8 pounds.
Yes, sir. This is 8.
I ordered with 5 pounds.
K9 mills some 5-pound braid, and one of my partners uses it. He has fine with it. He does good with it. Excuse me. But I'm gonna get me 3 or 4 casting rods. This is a 6.6. I got a 7-footer. I'm gonna tie a 16th jig on all of them to start with. If I feel like I gotta let the jigs, dead stick in a tree more or slow down, I'll go to 32nd. But I'm getting all my jigs ready. I'm making sure the drag's set on these reels.
Yeah, now I want you to go into detail how you set that drag. Now they can see it on this recording, but let's talk about it on the podcast. The people that can't see it, how you set that drag.
If you find the fish, and with this braid, there's no stretch in it. So when you set that hook on that fish, you want that drag to give a little bit because there's no stretch. You don't want to rip his mouth. You want to get him coming your way, and if he lunges, you want that thing to work. You want the reel to do the work and the rod. So if I told Big Daddy, I don't know if y'all can hear it or not, but you can see that reel spinning right there. That's the way I want it. I want to set the hook and that reel give.
Now what he's doing, he's grabbing the jig and pulling it down, and just
it's spinning right there.
Yeah.
I want it to go a couple 4 rounds. When I first hit that fish, that rod's going to absorb it. That the drag's going to work for me. That jig is getting in that fish's mouth. And if he does any lunging, it's not going to tear a little 1/4-inch hole where the jig falls out. I use a lot of sickle hooks. I don't know if y'all can see that. Yeah. It's a sickle hook. It's got a little bend in it. They're nasty hooks. But if you get hung a lot and you bend them, they'll eventually break. But I like the sickle hooks because I'm trying to eat them. I'm trying to put them in the boat. But I use that. You got to set your drag. And if it's too loose, when you first set the hook, you can always tighten it up. But I try to where it just peels off, at a certain pace. And I have pretty good success landing a lot of fish that way.
Now that's what your primary weapon is.
Yes,
those
sir,
6.5, 7-foot rods.
Yes, sir.
Set up with that 8-pound.
That's what I want to catch them with. That's what I'm gonna start with. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna
now your jigs, it's been so much. I've heard so much about color and size. And when you go with Gerald Overstreet, he'll put 50 different sizes.
Yeah, you don't ever know.
Colors,
that's right.
But he always catches them. Well, I've never done that. I'm just not gonna work that hard to have a good time.
I have several jigs. Reuben Flores, he's mentioned he's gonna put the
I put
information
the
on this
and the details.
Yes, sir. He's been building me some jigs for probably 3 or 4 years.
So if you want to call him, you just say, I want one of them Shane Jones.
Yeah, he knows exactly what I buy. It's not no secret. It's not a secret color. Yeah. It's a chartreuse head, black body, chartreuse tail. I use the hair jigs a lot, especially when it starts getting warmer, and I'll explain why if you want me to now. I believe in the summer, the hair jig profile, the hair in the back is slim. You got a bunch of spawning going on in the spring and the early summer. So their bait's a long profile. And that's why I believe they like the hair jig more. To me, it's the rate of fall and all that stuff. But Reuben built some nice jigs, and I make them weedless. And, Lord, I use them till there ain't any paint on them. I catch a lot of fish on them.
All right, let me ask you this now. That stuff you was catching them on that YouTube video I watched, and I ordered some.
Yes, sir.
Big bite bait. Weedless jigs. I love those things.
Those are nice. A friend of mine is sponsored by them that we fish the Crappie Masters with, and John Former. He's sponsored by them, and Simmons, a local store where I live, carried them. I looked and I was like, man, I like the jig.
And the only reason I have not been using plastics is because I couldn't find a jig head that was weedless, But that big bite, I'm telling you,
it's a nice head, and they're not very expensive. They got like
I think it was $385 for 6 of them.
Yeah, that's not bad. And man, I fish with them all day. up until you get that weed guard. It's a week, but it looks like some. I wish I had some with me. It looks like I don't know what pound test that weed guard is, but it's got a good hook in it.
Yeah.
It's a round bend nickel plated hook. They do good. Like I said, I'm not sponsored by none of them.
And then the bonehead jigs in the color you told. I like those too. I
caught a lot of fish on that. What is that green shad? It's a new color they come out with. When that water's stained, for some reason they like that green shad for several weeks. I used to use John Deere when the water's super muddy, anything that's bright. But Tommy Ezel works for Bonehead. Me and him talked several times, and I just told him I like those jigs, and I've been buying them. They're tough.
They are tough. That's what I threw yesterday.
I've used them till they just disintegrated.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. But
all right, now what about your long rod?
Long rod, I got several Jinko rods. I'm not sponsored by them again. I just like the rod.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, Eric Cagle and them just signed with them. Him and Scott Williams.
Is it J?
Jinko, Jenko.
All right.
Jinko makes some nice rods. I've got one of their higher end rods. It's an X13, what they call it. It's a 13.5-foot rod. It's real light. It weighs like 9 ounces. I've got a spinning reel like I just showed you, and I got 8-pound line on it because a lot of times in the summer I might tie a 30-second jig on there and work those treetops. I treat that long rod just like I would a minnow. I'm dipping in everything. I'm dipping, and when I start finding fish, if they're further in the tree or on a stump, I'll use that thing to pick up fish that don't want to trail my jig. If they don't want to chase my jig, I'm using that long rod. I'm gonna put it on them, and like I said, I can't swim that jig through a tree real well if it's thick, but I can drop that jig in there. One of my YouTube videos, you'll see me when it was cold back when I had that coronavirus thing for a little while. I went out there and it was cold. I didn't feel good, but I went fishing, and you'll watch me catch 4 or 5 fish out of there. I'm just lowering it down. I'm just lowering it down till they hit it. You can see them. That live scope, believe it or not, you can see them moving through the tree. They'll sense that jig bumping those limbs, and that fish will move. You can watch it. So y'all get ready. When you spend as much time as I do, you'll see all that. At first you won't. You're going to be like, well, oh, I got a bite. But I see that fish start creeping through the tree limbs until he comes up and thumps it.
That's what somebody told me yesterday. They said Gerald Overstreet could see a nose sticking out of a limb.
That's the truth. I seen them. I go with people. I'm like, man, you see that fish right there? They're like, what fish? And I didn't see him swim his nose out from behind a stump. He's sitting there like this. And I see him face away from me. You spend enough time looking at it, it's just like playing a video game.
Yeah.
When you're growing up, you can see what's going on. It's a great tool. I mean, it's here to stay. I mean, I don't.
Oh yeah.
These people are like, well, you catch all them fish because of live scope. Man, I probably am catching a lot more fish, but I mean, I caught a lot before I had it too. So, and it don't make a bad fisherman good. I promise.
No, I can tell you it does not. Because you got to spend time on the water and you got to learn the fishing.
That's exactly right.
The live scope ain't worth a darn.
Yes, you're exactly right.
All right, so what that about?
Yeah, I'm gonna throw those couple jigs in couple color. I got chartreuse and white. I got a monkey milk, a shad colored jig. I mean, it's not nothing real particular what I'm using. And I'm going to take them casting rods and I'm going to try to find the fish that I like to catch. The ones that want to eat, the ones that want to move the hot fish in the trees. I'm going to cast at them and hopefully I find them. If not, I'll drop that long rod on them if they don't want to be active, see if I can catch them that way. If I do, I won't put that long rod down. I'll keep working that type of cover all up and down the bank.
Man, I tell you what, I'm learning. I'm wanting to go fishing
I know.
right now.
I know if that wind wasn't blowing so bad.
All right, now. That's your gear.
Yes,
that's
it's
your
simple.
Shane Jones
Crappie
gear.
It's simple. Very simple. Very simple.
All right, now let's get into this. Let's get into this live scope. I got several questions I want to ask you about live scope. I got out there yesterday, and for some reason, I've got a little icon and I punch it, and it says your own COG and your compass needs calibrate.
Yes, sir. Calibrate.
And I try to calibrate it like they say, go around time, and it fails every time.
Yeah. Do you do it with the outboard or with the trolling motor?
I'm doing it with the outboard, and I'm doing it on dry land.
I've done it in the water with my trolling motor a lot, and it has a 97% success rate, which that's pretty good.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, though, it takes a minute for it to catch up where that area is. But man, if you run it and you spend time on the water, like we keep saying, that's the most important thing. You're gonna know where your foot is. When your foot position, you're gonna know exactly where that trolling motor is. You're gonna know, hey, if my heel's down, I know that thing's right here at 11 o'clock. If I push it forward, it's going to 1.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're knowing where your foot is, and you pretty much know. And sometimes you can't look over the live scope. I got to run a shade on mine. You can't hardly see where the air is. But I take my rod with customers, and I'll take it in my hand. I'll point it. I'll be like, right here, 20 feet, right here, until they get lined up and they know. Once they pop a few fish, they know exactly where that fish is, what direction. But I try to do my compass, and it works sometimes. Sometimes it don't.
Yeah.
But
I don't think it's that important.
no, sir, it's not. It's not going to affect
the only thing one time with mine, it started rocking up and down. You ever had it do that?
I've seen that do that.
Well, and they said calibrate your compass.
That's right. That's right. I've seen it where the rings of Saturn have come up on it.
Yeah.
Overall, Garmin's got done pretty well with it. That latest update we got, it kind of messed with mine.
I'm scared.
I wouldn't do it. It got rid of a lot of detail. I mean, open water fish, they look great. It's clear. You can run the color limit up, and you can run your gain way up, and you can see. But when it comes to cover, instead of you can see a fish in between a tree, it blurs it together now. Used to, I could see that individual fish.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me about 2 hours to get mine adjusted where I could.
They'll fix it, I'm sure.
I hope they come out with an update. They're coming out with a new transducer. I don't know if y'all seen that. They've got a new transducer that's fixing to come out. I hope they didn't try to push that out instead of updating this. This.
All right, one more question before we get into the
sir.
setting. Mine yesterday, and mine's on a pole.
Yes, sir.
And when I'm moving, sometimes that pole bends back a little bit.
That's right.
And I noticed that and when I was in a flat 12 foot of water,
yes,
it looked on the screen, it looked like I was going uphill.
Right.
And now I guess I can click that transducer down and fix that.
You could do that or tighten the Allen nut on it. It's got an Allen nut, it's got settings on their lines.
Yeah. Well, now mine hadn't. I got mine bolted on the bottom of my pole.
Right. Okay. Right.
But he had to unloosen the screw and ain't got the click.
Okay. I got you. So
if
I'm fishing shallow water, you could click it up a notch or click it down a notch. You got to get your best screen. You got to realize if you're running a 93 or whatever unit, you want 3/4 your screen. You won't drop that depth till you got 3/4 screen.
Mm-hmm.
The only bad thing about it messes with your fish size as far as your grids on it. If you run the grid, I run the grid because I can tell what size fish it is by how much space it takes up in the grid.
Well, on your depth,
yes,
do you keep it on auto? Or
no, sir. I manual it. No, sir.
That's the way I do too.
You're going to run your 20 foot of water. I'm going to put it on 25 foot.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see the bottom and all the screen. I want to maximize my screen. Mm-hmm. And that way I can see everything. Jig, fish.
But it is different in shallow water and when you get out in that deep water. Now, it really is. Different. And I've never used a perspective.
No, I don't either. I think that's more for bed fishing myself. But I've seen people use, I've been watching some guys that run 2 units, and it's crazy. Mm-hmm. They'll look at the fish in this thing, and they're both touch screens, and he'll zoom in on this one to watch his jig on the one he zoomed in. You can get crazy as you want to with electronics. Yeah. But to me, I like to keep it simple. I just want it to do what it wants.
And that's who we talking to. We're talking to people like me and you.
I'm a normal fisherman. I got a little aluminum boat with a 70 on it. I don't have anything special. And you don't have to be that complicated. I promise you don't have to have. But I mean, if you do run a live scope,
but let's talk about it now. If somebody invests that money in live scope, and I would strongly, and I told that guy that called me this morning, he asked me about installing it himself. There's some people that can do it. I got the Bass Pro Shop in Prattville to put mine on.
I understand.
I think Will Harrell at CT Ward Power Sports can put it on. They wasn't open when I got mine.
That's good.
Let somebody that knows what they're doing put it on, and then you listen to people like Shane Jones Fishing on how to run the thing. And let's talk to that person that has bought that. It's an investment.
It's big time.
And now you get out in that water. My first advice would be look at as many YouTube videos as your brain can comprehend. That's exactly and then right. Talk to people like Shane, Gerald Overstreet, Eric Cagle. All of them will help you out.
Yeah, everybody's. It's a sharing community. That's big time. But you buy a 93 SV, that's the introductor. That's the touchscreen, 9-inch screen.
That's what I got. 9
inches from corner to corner. That's the way they measure, just like that phone. I That's what I started out with. It's touchscreen. There's settings. Like I said, you're welcome to message me or call me. You're going to have your noise reject on off or on low. The TVG, I run it off. Unless you're fishing 20 foot deep, you don't need that TVG on. Your forward view, like I said, I run it on 40. And once I get on the fish, I run it up to 30. The gain, a lot of times it depends on what unit you have. You can run it up to the high 50s to 60s. I used to run mine hot, so it had a lot of interference, but I could see more detail once you look through the interference.
I had mine on 63
There
yesterday.
you go. But like I said, those settings are pretty much basic where you can see your jig. Now, if you're throwing a big old spinnerbait bass fishing, Lord knows you ain't got to have it precise, the exact settings, but you're throwing a 16th ounce jig.
Right.
It's an inch and a half long.
And I'll tell you, this is a mistake I made when I first got it, is you think you can't see your jig. It is just a 20-degree
exactly
cone.
Right.
You can see that
100%
that
right.
jig, and you got to get used to that. You gotta watch where your transducer is pointing to where you're gonna be able to see it. Now you can see it out 50 feet if you.
Oh, you can. Yeah, I've caught fish at 40 feet with it, but you got to realize when you first start out and when you have one, you need to make short pitches.
Yeah.
5 feet and watch it.
Yeah.
And say, oh, there's the line I need. There's the line I need. You can. Your instinct is gonna keep you in that line.
Mm-hmm.
The worst fish to catch is one of your hard right or your hard left. At 3 and 9 o'clock, it's hard. Mm-hmm. But right here in this, but I run my color on blue before this latest update we had. The reason why I went on blue, as you turn that thing to that fish, it gets brighter as you get to the center of that fish. And you run it on midnight or lava you can, but that blue, when you shine that live scope, it gets brighter as the center of the fish. So I know that's center. So to me, when you got open water fish and it's brighter, that helps you line up a little better.
Mm-hmm.
And if that fish don't react and you get close to him, you didn't get close to him. You come by him. Like I said, you come by him. But if you come over his head and you see him kind of, he's letting you know that jig's close to him. Mm-hmm. He's either going to bite it, react, and eat it, or he's just going to watch it go by.
And something else, and we mentioned it in the first segment. Boat control is crucial. Crucial.
That's exactly right. People don't understand. You're going to get anxious and you want to see that fish and you want to run up to him. If the wind's blowing in your face, you better take a hard left and make your approach. That's what it's just like flying a kite. You can't, like I said, you got to line up on that fish. If you see a group of fish in the top, you obviously don't want to go in there and throw all to your left and the wind blowing because you can't keep the live scope on them with that boat blending. So you get down below them and get lined up and try to line up and you catch them fish. And once you do that a few times, it's no different than operating any other thing else. I mean, you just know your instinct, you'll do it just naturally. You'll do it. So.
And a live scope is just like the motor on the back of you. It's not really a lot of maintenance, but you gotta tweak it every now and then.
You gotta take care of it too. Like when he's saying you're talking about getting installed, you don't want to pinch that transducer cord. Mm-hmm. You got to have certain gauge wire ran to it. C-Light makes a harness. It's expensive, but it's 10 gauge wire. They say it makes it clear. I ran mine, but I've got a little bit of electrical background, not a lot, but you don't have to watch a lot of videos, but that couple $100 you're going to pay somebody to slap it on, it's well worth it when that thing runs. So.
And let me tell you, I had a terrible battery problem when I put mine in.
Yes, sir.
And what I found out was the whole problem I had, I used I was fixing to spend $900 on a lithium.
Yes, sir.
But I found out what my problem was my battery charger.
Yes, sir.
That my battery charger, it was an old battery charger, and it was just charging that battery up to 12.5.
Right.
And the alternator on my motor wouldn't charge it up but to 12.5.
Yes, sir.
Well, I bought that new smart battery charger.
There you go.
It charged it up to 14.2.
That's exactly right.
And let me tell you something,
Big
that
difference.
made a heck of a difference.
Well,
I wasn't charging the battery up all the way.
That's right. You got to realize new technology. You got to have new stuff to go with new technology.
Buy you a smart one of those and
nice.
Leave it on and leave it hooked up to it all the time.
Check your water in them. I go through batteries about every 2 years because I'm going. That's what people. I just bought a new cranking battery, new trolling motor. My cranking went out, so I went on and bought new trolling motor batteries because I don't want to break down. But I think you have to have a group 27 battery or bigger.
The 31's better.
31's better. Like I said, you don't want to be disappointed when you get all this equipment. You got all this money tied
And
up.
I'm telling you, that little old black box in that on
Yes,
that
sir.
live scope, it draws some power, y'all.
Yes,
I
sir,
can
it
tell
does.
you now.
Well, it's processing what you're looking at.
Yeah.
And that's why you got to have all that stuff set up right. I mean, that's no doubt about it. If you're going to go through that money and spend that much time, hey, it's an investment to me.
Yeah, yeah,
as much as anything.
And it is a learning curve. It
Big
is, like I
time,
said,
big
I'll
time.
say it again. It took me 40 hours
yeah.
on the water before I was comfortable with that live
Yes, sir.
scope.
Well, a lot of guys.
And I got disappointed and discouraged.
Oh
too.
yeah, you're going to get pissed off, man. You're talking about some cussing and raising Cain. Most
I
people
spent $4,000.
Yeah, most people that I carry, they've got a live scope, and some of them's like, "Hey, man, I've never seen my jig come through a top of a fish eat it." Well, you fixing to today?
Yeah.
And then they're like, "Oh," and they take that, and then once they put their foot on that trolling motor and do it themselves, you can't take that away from them. They know what the drill is,
and it's no smile like that smile when you see that first 2-pound crappie hit that bait.
What you talking about, man? Hey, and I sat there and I carry people out. I was like, "Oh, you fixing to get smoked?" And they're like, "Well, you boom!" I said, "I told you." Just watching that. If you ever see that tail, that crappie's tail do like this, he's fixing to eat that jig so hard, and that's fun. That's where you get that thump when he sucks that bait in. And it's a rush. I mean, it's my drug for sure.
Well, I tell you what. I tell you what's my rush is having you in here today, man. I appreciate you.
I got a passion for it. I love it.
The man drove 100 miles to give you all this information today. Go to his YouTube channel and like it and share it and
subscribe to it, please.
Yeah, I'll put all the information in.
I have fun, and I try. Like I said, I try to give information on there. And nobody can tell you. It's hard to catch somebody else's fish, guys, but you put the work in and find your own fish.
Yeah,
you can catch some fish.
And there's plenty of it out there.
Oh man,
and all these guys that put these treetops out that think nobody's gonna find them. That's over with.
That's exactly right. I got some PVC and it hides pretty good, but you put the work in and go catch them.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Like I said, he's gonna tell y'all time on the water and boat control. That's 1 and 2, 100%. That's what people's like, man, you good at that crappie fishing. No, I'm not. I've spent more time than you have.
That's right.
That's all it is to it. It has nothing. I'm better than somebody else, but I've got the knowledge is experience from, catching them and also just time on the water and running that trolling motor.
And it doesn't matter what electronics you use. It doesn't matter what you use. I think that's the key to it is time on the water.
Yes, sir.
And boat control.
That's
I think if you can control your boat and
sir.
spend the time on the water, you're gonna catch some fish.
That's 100%. There's you cannot help but catch fish. I mean, it's everybody beats the banks here in a few weeks during AA and drops minnows and casts jigs. You can catch crappie year round. I promise you. I've done it for 28, 29 months in a row. I mean, I got the pictures to prove it. You can do it.
Yeah, ain't no doubt about it. You got the videos.
Yeah, well, I'll try. That's why I try. This summer, y'all better be tuned, good Lord willing, and I'm around. This summer, you're going to see some stuff that'll blow your mind.
And I guarantee you, it's Shane Jones crappie fishing.
That's it. Yes, Shane I put Jones. Crappie on there. That way people know what I'm fishing for.
And I'm telling you, it's just like we talking today. He is the real deal. And ain't nothing phony about it. He's just like me and you. But he's a terrific crappie fisherman and an even better communicator at telling folks how to crappie.
That's right. I learned some patience, and hey, I just like to do it. I like to see people catch them. You can believe them. You can take that to the bank, buddy.
Well, I was a little discouraged yesterday, but after today, I ain't gonna put another minnow in my boat.
Hey, I don't think. Well, like I said, you go catch your first limit on all jigs, you're gonna be like,
that's it.
That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
I've been resisting it now for about 40 years. So
I've got a buddy that he'll watch this and he'll go get him a minnow bucket and all that stuff. He's been with me several times, but I guess it's just like a crutch.
Yeah.
As anything else. It is. It's a crutch, and they still bite them. Don't get me wrong. But if I got somebody that's physically able to cast and can pretty much put it where I ask them, they're going to catch fish on a jig. I don't care who you are, Zywa, Bullet, spinning reel, whatever. You're gonna catch a fish with that.
And I'm looking. You want to say something about the video you're gonna do with them?
Oh yeah, it's coming up, guys. Y'all get ready this summer. Me and my buddy Shane Welch, one of my best friends, we're going to Walmart. We're buying Dora the Explorer, Snoopy rods, 4-footers, and we're gonna go make a show, and not just to shed light on people, but I'm just gonna let you know it's where you put that jig and how you put it. And I might break a couple of them. I probably better buy 3 or 4 of them, but I'm gonna have fun with that because crappie fish is supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
You know, most bass fishermen I see, they're unhappy as all get out unless they won. They're mad. Say, I'm having fun, but I catch 10 crappie, I'm good. You know,
yeah,
I'm good with it.
Eight's my enough. If I can catch 8
Hey,
crappie,
yeah.
hey, that's 16 fillets and
what you talking
quart bag.
What you talking about? You know, and again, I've had people tell me at the launch, hey man, it's too hot. They probably ain't gonna buy it. You know, if I listen to them, I'd have turned around and went home.
Yeah, well,
not no more.
Shane Jones, man, thank you.
Oh yeah, I enjoyed it.
I can't remember when I've enjoyed an hour and a half more than I did.
Oh yeah,
today.
It's been a good show. I've enjoyed it too, buddy.
Hey, y'all, stay tuned. We're gonna go down to the Monroe County, Beatrice, Alabama, and talk to Miss Tammy Eichner about the Monroe County Public Fishing Lake. Coming up next on the Getting Outdoors podcast. You've been listening to Shane Jones Crappie Fishing, and go to his YouTube channel. All information's in the details of this podcast. And Shane, once again, man.
Yes, I've enjoyed it. I'll come
stuff.
down anytime.
All right. So y'all stand by. We'll be right back.